We're following a massive ICE raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia. Officials say roughly 450 undocumented migrants were apprehended. Now, Thursday's raid was carried out by multiple state and federal law enforcement agencies, including ICE, the FBI, and the Georgia State Patrol.
The American dream, built on the promise that hard work leads to prosperity. A foundation of our society where honest labor creates opportunity for all. But what happens when that promise is systematically undermined? When American jobs become criminal territory? On September 4th, 2025, that question was answered with devastating clarity in Bryan County, Georgia. As morning broke over the sprawling 3-acre Hyundai Metaplant site, federal agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, alongside officers from the FBI, DEA, ATF, IRS, and Georgia State Patrol, descended on what should have been a shining example of American manufacturing renaissance. What they found shocked the nation. 475 workers, most using fraudulent tourist visas, operating illegally at one of America's most celebrated manufacturing investments. A $7.6 billion EV and battery production facility meant to create legitimate jobs for American workers had become ground zero for what investigators would later describe as systematic employment fraud. The initial assumption might be familiar. Companies hire undocumented workers out of desperation, labor shortages, competitive pressures, economic necessity. But what federal investigators uncovered wasn't simple cost-cutting. It was calculated criminal profit maximization. This wasn't about immigration policy failure. This was economic warfare disguised as business operations. As Stephen Schrank, special agent in charge of Homeland Security Investigations in Georgia and Alabama, stated, this operation specifically focused on serious allegations of unlawful employment practices and other potential federal crimes. While Americans struggled to find work in specialized manufacturing, criminal networks had systematically placed hundreds of unauthorized workers in positions that should have gone to legal residents and citizens. And the most alarming revelation? Georgia was just the beginning. Federal databases revealed the pattern. Criminal employment networks systematically displacing American workers across multiple industries and states. This wasn't business adaptation. This was criminal empire expansion using American jobs as conquered territory. To understand the scope of what was uncovered in Georgia, we must examine the complete architecture of what investigators now call the criminal employment industrial complex. First, recruitment networks. Criminal organizations directing illegal workers to specific employers, operating not as random labor pools, but as coordinated placement systems targeting key industries. Second, wage suppression systems, the coordinated undercutting of American worker compensation, creating artificial price advantages that legitimate businesses couldn't match without joining the criminal enterprise. Third, document fraud operations. Not merely scattered fake IDs, but systematic falsification of work authorization documents, creating the illusion of legitimate employment while maintaining criminal control. Fourth, business infiltration. Criminal networks capturing legitimate companies as operational bases, using established businesses as fronts for employment fraud on an industrial scale. The strategic genius was undeniable. These criminal organizations didn't just exploit employment opportunities, they weaponized them. They identified industries with high American worker demand and systematically infiltrated them, created illegal workforce advantages that legitimate businesses couldn't compete against, used document fraud to maintain the appearance of legality while preserving criminal control. And, most devastatingly, they built networks that displaced American workers while generating criminal profits. Just as federal agents thought they understood the scope, the investigation revealed something far more alarming. Multi-industry penetration. Criminal employment networks operating not just in manufacturing, but across construction, hospitality, agriculture, and manufacturing. Geographic expansion. Coordinated displacement of American workers in multiple states simultaneously. Scale explosion, Hundreds of thousands of American jobs affected by systematic criminal employment. Economic impact. Billions in suppressed wages and displaced American earning potential. The collapse of assumptions was total. This wasn't about immigration policy or labor economics. This was about criminal organizations studying American employment systems, identifying vulnerability points, and building systematic exploitation networks that treat American jobs as criminal resources to be captured and monetized. The Georgia operation exposed the truth. American employment had been infiltrated by criminal networks waging economic warfare against American workers. The post-Georgia operation reality marks a fundamental shift in how America protects its workforce. Federal enforcement now targets employment crime as organized criminal activity, not merely as regulatory violations. As ICE stated in its announcement, together we are sending a clear and unequivocal message. Those who exploit our workforce, undermine our economy, and violate federal laws will be held accountable. From this criminal employment exposure comes economic evolution. Fair competition restoration between legitimate businesses and legal workers. The playing field levels when criminal advantages are removed from the system. Wage recovery in industries previously suppressed by criminal employment networks. When wage rates are determined by legitimate market forces rather than criminal exploitation, American workers benefit directly. Legal immigration protection that distinguishes between legitimate workers and criminal exploitation. True immigrants following lawful pathways are protected when criminal networks are eliminated. Federal enforcement coordination creating systematic protection for American employment. Multiple agencies working together to secure job opportunities for legal workers. The Georgia operation wasn't about punishing immigrants. It was about protecting American workers from criminal organizations that exploit both illegal workers and American employment systems. The message sent to criminal networks was clear. Using American jobs as criminal resources now faces systematic federal response that prioritizes American workers and legal immigration. The employment system hasn't been destroyed. It has been purified. For the first time, America can protect both American workers and legitimate immigrants by removing the criminal networks that exploit them both. In Bryan County, Georgia, a new chapter began, not just for a manufacturing plant, but for the American worker. A chapter where federal enforcement stands between criminal exploitation and American job opportunities, where legitimate businesses operate without criminal competition, where legal immigrants and American workers alike benefit from systematic criminal displacement. The battle for American jobs continues, but for the first time, the battlefield is clearly defined, the enemy identified, and the strategy deployed. This is how we reclaim American employment from criminal control. One operation, one industry, one state at a time, until the American dream of honest work for honest pay is restored for every legal worker in America.